So today, really, what we're looking at is the link between good governance and a successful merger or acquisition. And whether you are sitting here as a potential investor, or you are sitting within your organization, or within as a founder or an entrepreneur, or within a corporate, looking to go, well, what next? What do we need to be looking at? How do we look at due diligence? And what are ways and means to actually benefit the process and strengthen the process, something that we can do. So my name is Beverly Hancock. I head up the guide and appointment practices within Sadar. I've been with the organization for probably over 3 years now. And why I am passionate about what I do is that Sadar really is here to provide an integrated boardroom solution through 3 different areas: guide, appoint, and educate. And through doing this, we are invested boardroom partner in Africa. And we work with family-owned entities, privately owned organizations, and corporate, and within the corporate space in terms of listers and so forth. So we really partner with boards to navigate each board's unique journey of improved boardroom performance through practical advisory and governance services. And really, I'd like to start today with, let your purpose guide you through the darkness. And I start with this, and you'll see throughout the presentation, there are images of climbing and of mountains and so forth. And the reason for that is that, out of interest, Sadar, or a Sadar, is actually the lead Sherpa in a mountaineering expedition. And we liken ourselves to that, because as we guide boards and businesses grow through this process, we look at a Sherpa and a lead Sherpa and a Sadar. And you get to the base of a mountain, you've been wearing your shoes in for 12 months, you've been climbing, in preparation for the last 18 to 24 months. And you get to the bottom of a mountain like Kilimanjaro or Everest. And waiting for you there is a Sadar, is a Sherpas, because they don't climb in front of you, they don't climb behind you, they climb with you. And their sole purpose is to get you to the top of that mountain, not only to the top of the mountain, but back down safely again. And so as you embark on your process, one has to ask oneself, where do I want to be? Because so often we start an organization, or we start a business, or we join an organization without seeing or considering what we want from the outcome at the end of it. Do we want to sell that business? Do we want to have a board in place so that we can step back and sit as a shareholder? Or do you want to be active within the organization still and really just do what you enjoy doing? So to have a board supporting you in that space as well. Or are you looking to invest and grow the business through acquisition? And by growing the business through acquisition, you want to be very clear in that you are taking in and acquiring organizations that are going to add value and add to the bottom line. So today we're going to look at a couple of areas. What is due diligence? The due diligence process within M&A, we'll touch on that. Good governance, the role of the board and management, governance fundamentals, and a board effectiveness diagnostic. So let's start with what is due diligence. And there's any number of descriptions of it, but essentially due diligence is a process of verification, investigation, or audit of a potential deal or investment opportunity to confirm all the relevant facts and the financial information that's presented, and to verify anything else that was brought up during an M&A deal or an investment process. And due diligence is completed before deal closes to provide the buyer with an assurance of what they're getting. And now in mergers and acquisitions, we really think of 4 different types of due diligence. So you've got financial, legal, operational, and tax. And by the very name of it, financial due diligence really focuses on the financial performance of a company until the present date, and ensuring that the numbers presented in the financial statements are actually accurate and sustainable. And depending on the complexity of the organization, this can, of course, one has to potentially dive a little bit deeper into how it is structured as well. So this is very important. You've also got the legal due diligence, which is the legal aspects of the company and the relationships with its stakeholders. And this can be, for example, regulatory issues, contracts, legal liabilities that may be pending, any licenses that the organization has that need to be analyzed. You've got operational, and this is the company's operations. How does the company turn over? How does it operate? How does it turn inputs into outputs? And this is very much often a forward-looking outlook as well, in terms of looking at due diligence. And then you've got the tax aspect. So that's the tax affairs of the organization that you're looking at, and ensuring that everything is actually fully paid up to date. And how would it affect, if you're looking at a merger, in fact, how would the tax liabilities of the new entity, how would a merger affect the tax liabilities of the new entity? So why is due diligence important? And often, you know, you think about it, you're going in to, as an organization, to probably one of the biggest transactions you will undertake. And you've got very clear reasons for doing so. And you need to make an informed decision. And if you think of yourself as the buyer rather than the seller, you can actually look at what the issues can be. So there's inherent bias. The seller is always going to want to present the organization in its very best light. And that's from the financials through to deliverables and the operations of the organization. You also need to look at the incentives. What are the incentives through closing of, or through the merger? What can be achieved through this? And also very important, we touched on financial due diligence earlier, is inaccurate financial information. One has to be very clear on what, on the finances of the organization. And also, when you're looking to acquire an organization, is what is the potential thereof? So one has to be understanding of the business. And there's the benefits then in terms of negotiation, because it's looking at the value of the organization. What is the value to me? What is the value to the business? What is the value to the seller? Very often very different. And it is important to do a risk analysis, because here you can potentially uncover potential exposures in areas. And depending on the industry sector, could be environmental concerns, it could be product liability, and so forth. And then you have the inability to seek or obtain restitution. Because once the transaction is complete, there is then usually no one to blame and no party from whom to seek or obtain restitution for problems discovered after the fact, when one's done your due diligence. And we say, who is responsible for this? So the complexity of mergers and acquisitions obliges both the buyer and the seller to gather and analyze all the important information required before proceeding. Both the buyer and the seller are able to conduct due diligence to enhance the information they already have and to gather additional relevant information. It's not good enough to accept, if you are looking to purchase an organization or business, to accept without actually doing due diligence. You know, we have a recent example ourselves where our majority shareholder was selling the organization to move into a different space, and that was the founder. And so with the new majority shareholders, they absolutely said, well, of course we did our own due diligence. As much as presented to you, the financials, the operations, the processes, the procedures, everything that makes up an organization, it's important that you actually do your own homework. Now, when we talk about the mountaineering aspect of it and aiming to sell your organization or to acquire a business that's going to add value to your portfolio, you need the right combination of climbers. And it's understanding who can support you in this process. So if we look at the greater whole, if we look at sort of formalized merger and acquisition transaction, you can see that there's certainly different phases. So you've got the strategy, you're defining the strategy and the goals. You've got the target screening, where you identify potential M&A targets. And for this, if you're looking to invest in an organization, you may very well use an organization that specializes in this, okay, and supports you in that journey because they understand and have got the strategy set out. And then you analyze your potential synergies. Your phase 3 is your due diligence. And we're going to look at that now. But that's when you plan your due diligence. You organize the teams who are going to drive that. You define the approach, the methods, the protocols. You conduct it, and then you analyze the findings. And then you will move on. Once that is deemed acceptable, you will then move on and you then follow through with the execution of the transaction. Through having done your due diligence, you will understand and being able to understand the value of the organization, and you will then move forward with that. You develop a deal structure, present the deal, negotiate, and integrate, which is your phase 5. Within that due diligence process, we look at the full portfolio. So you analyze the purpose of the project. There's pre-analysis of the financial business case. There's checking all the documentation. And we're going to go into that a little bit later because this is around the governance aspect as well. A full analysis of the business case and plans. A risk analysis. Key is a risk analysis as you're doing an audit of the company. Because you need to ensure that any decision taking regarding the company of question is an informed one. Your then final offering creation and ongoing monitoring. And part of that, and there's several reasons why due diligence is conducted, and we've spoken about it, but it really is to confirm and verify information that's been brought up during the deal or the investment process. It is to identify potential defects in the deal or in the investment opportunity, and thus avoid a really bad business transaction. Part of that due diligence is to obtain information that's useful in valuing the deal, and also to make sure that the deal or the investment opportunity complies with the investment or deal criteria that have been set out. So as part of that process for the organization in question, you've got to look at governance and good governance, the role of the board of management. So if you're looking to sell your business, you need to sit back and understand what is the buyer looking for. And part of that is to look at the board, because the board's role in any acquisition process is that of oversight. And that is to fulfill its oversight responsibilities and duty of care to shareholders. And the board and the management should work together to facilitate a comprehensive due diligence process, so that when you are being approached or you're dealing with investors, you have a comprehensive set of deliverables that you can give them to review. And what is good governance? We have the SDAR governance compass speaks to 8 areas. And as an organization, whether you are one director and founder entrepreneur looking to sell your business, or you are a corporate with a board, good governance covers all areas. And you have to understand, am I as a director addressing all of these? Because by addressing all of these, I am presenting a business that is of value into the market. And that is strategy and direction, organizational culture, effective leadership, stakeholder engagement, shareholder returns, risk management and compliance, financial results, valuation improvement. Are we as a board, was a director, if you don't have a board, and certainly I can speak to the value of actually putting in a board if you don't have a board ahead of looking to sell your business. We have an example of a family-owned organization that probably built their retail business to 52 odd stores, put in a board with non-executive directors, grew that business substantially, and eventually sold out to a well-known name for, well, it was over R1 billion. And that is because they stepped back as a family-owned organization, looked at their business, said, do we have everything in place? Let's put a board in place to support this journey of good governance and good decision-making, and grow the business through this. So these are certainly all the elements that, as an organization, you need to understand and be dealing with ahead of really preparing yourself for investors. And so this we look at how to be ahead of the game and how to attract the right buyers. Because well-designed governance takes everything into account, from reducing risk, from putting everything in place for the business to be sold, looking at the value generation, takes everything into account, enhances value and reduces risk. So a board effective diagnostic is something that will almost give you a snapshot of your board. It looks at the where are you now, what do we need to be dealing with, and how do we improve in order to prepare ourselves for sale, to be ready for sale. And by doing a board effective, effectiveness diagnostic, SDAR can assess the current level of board performance, review your governance fundamentals, and we're speaking to that particular compass we were looking at earlier, examine your overall board performance, and assess the alignment and balance of governance and strategic focus. So take an in-depth look at what the board is now and how effective the board is. And by that, we provide insights. There's a report that we provide insights into areas to improve your board performance. your board process, and the corporate governance structure in alignment with your business strategy. And we actually provide a 12 to 18-month roadmap in order to do that. And this forms part of your due diligence. It forms part of the due diligence process. It supports your journey and it supports your deliverables when you are dealing with investors. Because if you think and put on an investor hat, what does an investor want to see? They want to see a well-run organization that, yes, has the board charters in place, has everything in place, is sustainable, has strategy in place, and has a strong board in place in order to support the growth of that business. And so if we look at a board effectiveness diagnostic, it really is designed to assess the current level of board performance by using best practice and accepted high performance metrics as a basis for measurement. So we were speaking earlier, it includes a governance review, so focusing on foundational elements such as a board charter, terms of reference, delegations of authority, and so forth. And even as a founder-led organization, these need to be in place. And then apart from that, we do a review of the overall board process. And the outcome is to assess the alignment of balance and of governance and strategic focus. Of course, while appreciating and taking into account the nuances and your unique requirements of your business. And through this, through understanding the alignment and the balance of governance and strategic focus, and practical and applicable actions can be implemented, improving your board performance. And this is by using proven methodology and approach and a focus on what is meant to be a high performance board. And through doing all of this, you have improved outcomes for shareholders and other stakeholders. And taking the next steps from that, you are improving the value of your organization to those that are looking to invest in your organization. And you have a much clearer idea of your business. And because most companies, or many companies certainly, will approach diligence as a high-level analysis limited to a search for red flags, deal killers, fatal flaws. And that can be an appropriate starting point based on time and cost. A comprehensive approach includes a more detailed analysis of the target's information, the industry, the economic outlook. And this is where this is a valuable asset in it. Because due diligence can surface fundamental insights, risks, exposures that can have a significant impact on valuation, the terms of the transaction agreement, the culture, the people risks, the technology. And we look to cover all of that. You want to cover all those areas. Because a structured due diligence process can also help management assess the likelihood of the success and limit surprises during the post-transaction period. So you would not climb a mountain with an inexperienced guide, and it should be no difference in business. When you are looking to start the process, whether you are going to invest in an organization or you want to sell the business that you are in, you need to look to the experts in order to best prepare the business at hand. So leverage knowledgeable and experienced partners to show you the way. There are organizations obviously in the industry that will support your journey in terms of sale, that will bring the right buyers to you. And by bringing the right buyers to you, they need to understand who is the right buyer. And by doing your board effectiveness diagnostic, by preparing your sales for ahead of time and understanding what you want out of this, you are then best prepared for it. I see we do have, yes, Percy, is that why the SA deal is taking so long and most likely be concluded? Yes. And that's why due diligence is so critical in anything. There are any number of examples in the market, past and present, where if you're not doing your homework, you can be caught up in something you don't want to be caught up in. And after the fact, it doesn't help. And there will always be things. I think that's why in a due diligence process, it has to be clear. There has to be transparency. And we have to remember, we've got to go back to the beginning, whereby it's that understanding of what is being presented and how clear is that. At the end of the day, one has to do one's homework. We can't get away from it. Are there any questions around this? And I know we've run through it fairly quickly because there is so much you can dive into. You can dive more into due diligence. What is it? What does it entail? We can dive into the key elements of due diligence. But what is important is that understanding of good governance and a successful acquisition or sale is the homework in between and the responsibilities in between in order to deliver something, that there is a plan in place to get to that point. So if you practice good governance, you're going to have less obstacles down the road, and you can actually plan ahead in terms of your strategy as to where you want to be and how you want to sell. You want to reduce the risk. As an investor, you want to reduce the risk. And as a seller, you want to reduce the risk. And it can take a long time. You know, I think we'd all love to go, well, you know, I've got a business and I'm going to sell it and, you know, make a lot of money and it's fantastic. And, you know, we hear all these success stories. But it doesn't always happen overnight. And so what are you doing? How prepared are you? How prepared is the board? And as the management and board working together in order to facilitate the process. Whether you are a local entity or you're a multinational, the complexity will change, but not the necessity for strong due diligence. There's other areas, you know, we speak about the 4 areas of financial, legal, and so forth. But there's also reputational due diligence. And this can include background checks on your target if you're looking to invest, on its shareholders, its key executives. Very important in today. And we know of many examples where, you know, you have to investigate it. Are there prior instances of fraud, of corruption, of money laundering, trade compliance, labor, product safety, any other adverse issues? So public records are a good start there to reveal financial red flags as well, such as bankruptcies and excessive litigation for the company or its principals. So that is an area to consider. Insurance due diligence, integration and synergy due diligence. You know, you are welcome to contact us at any point to have this discussion further, to see where we can support you in this, to speak to you further around a diagnostic to get that snapshot of, if I am looking to go to market, what do I need to do first in order to present the organization at its at its best in order to attain the value that I believe my company is worth, because that is always going to be a negotiation as well. You know, when we've spoken about the board earlier, and we've spoken about the board's role in this process of M&A is oversight. So the board, it wouldn't be expected, and ordinarily would not actually conduct due diligence itself. You'll find certainly in smaller organizations, as we say, potentially founder-led, where as a director and so forth, you are still involved in preparing of documentation, or preparing of financials, preparing, etc., of what you believe the business is worth. So we understand that process. But there is an oversight required here. So if there is anything else, please do not hesitate. We'd like to thank you very much for joining us today. We hope that you, thank you, Sajid. We hope that you attained information from this, and that you can go forth whether you look to invest or whether you look to sell, and make a successful process of it. Thank you very much.